Coming in at number 10, we have Quinn Skaggs. Right off the bat, with a name like Quinn Skaggs, you know this guy means business. This guy sounds like he's a character from a Guy Ritchie movie. If you're in the crime world and you're dealing with Quinn Skaggs, he's probably going to cut your pinky off when you don't pay him back in time. Now, Quinn had a long rap sheet when he was brought in. He was only 17 and he had already been arrested for a burglary spree where he was breaking into people's homes while armed with a handgun. Man, at his age, the most dangerous thing I was doing was trying to convince my older brother to buy me a Mickey of rum so I could feel cool at a party. Skaggs also got into a fight at school, and when a teacher tried to break it up, he beat the hell out of the teacher who needed to have surgery on his face. This 17-year-old was being held in a detention center and then kicked out the window and used bed sheets to scale down the side of the building like he was in the show Prison Break.
Kangwa Ren, who is better known as his YouTube name Reset, makes gaming videos and has over 1 million subscribers on his channel. In 2017, he made a video that saw him remove the cream filling from an Oreo, replace it with toothpaste, and then give it to an unsuspecting homeless man who later threw up. When people began to give him backlash for this video, he removed it and instead put up another video of him giving the same man a $20 bill, as if that's compensation enough. The judge in this case certainly took into consideration the fact that he had made more than $2,000 on this video alone, so the measly offer of $20 was most certainly insufficient. The court decided on a 15-month sentence and a fine of $20,000 as well as a 5-year YouTube ban. It is unclear if Reset ended up actually heading off to serve his sentence or not, but his channel hasn't been posted on since August of this year. In our number 8 spot, we have Austin Jones. Austin Jones was a YouTube musician who started on the platform all the way back in 2007. Last year, Austin was sentenced to 10 years in prison for soliciting underage girls for photos and videos. The complaints started in 2015, and in 2017 he was arrested. He ended up pleading guilty and admitted to using different platforms such as Facebook and iMessage. The 10-year sentence comes from him pleading guilty on one count of the things that he was accused of. Initially, his YouTube account was demonetized once the allegations came to light, but it was quickly removed entirely following the guilty plea. In our number 7 spot today, we have Ruslan Sokolovsky. Okay, this one is kind of crazy. Russian YouTuber and law student Ruslan Sokolovsky is facing jail time because he was playing Pokemon Go in church. He had filmed himself playing the game and a few weeks later was awoken in his apartment by the police coming in to arrest him. Apparently this is a crime in Russia because it is obviously offensive to the people who were there to worship. I completely agree that it was extremely rude and distasteful for him to pull this kind of a stunt, but 5 years in jail for playing Pokemon Go does seem kind of insane. Like, Matthew Wayne called in a bomb threat to a hospital and got a significantly lighter sentence. After Ruslan was arrested, he was on house arrest for a while and is banned from speaking to anyone other than his lawyer and the people who are investigating him. This arrest is seen as very controversial and has a lot of people discussing freedom of speech laws. While I'm not exactly sure if there has been an official sentencing or not, Ruslan is facing 5 years in prison for this offense. In our number 6 spot, we have Billy Altidore and Ivani Lewis. Billy Altidore and Ivani Lewis are the YouTube couple who run their channel called Beam Squad. The pair post videos of them and their family doing challenges and pranks and just talking about their daily lives. Last year, the couple was arrested and charged for fraud, which they of course documented on their YouTube channel. According to court documents, the pair used stolen identities to create fake bank accounts and debit cards. The pair then used personal information that they had stolen in order to access the Social Security Administration website, where they then made direct benefit payments into their new fake bank accounts. There were allegedly 1,400 people whose benefits they tried to access, and of course some were successful and some were not. After this, the couple then used stolen personal information to file false tax returns and again directed the false tax returns into their fake bank accounts. Of course, they were eventually found out, which is what led to their arrest. They both pleaded guilty and Billy was sentenced to 2 years, while Ivani was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day. And they were also fined close to $94,000 in restitution. Billy has since gone away to serve his time, but because of the fact that they have kids, Ivani will be waiting to serve her time until Billy is back and able to take care of the kids. Their channel continues to grow and gain subscribers and sees around 12 uploads a month. In our number 5 spot today, we have Daniel Silva. Daniel is a YouTuber and tattoo artist who may be better known for his time on the tattoo competition show Ink Master. Daniel uploads videos of him tattooing and having conversations with celebrities, influencers, and athletes. Things took a really sad turn for Daniel earlier this year though. On May 10th, Daniel was speeding his 2020 McLaren 600 LT with his friend and famous YouTuber Corey LeBerry in the passenger seat when he accidentally lost control of the vehicle and ended up crashing into a stop sign and tree. This crash ended up taking the life of Corey. Daniel was then arrested and ended up pleading no contest in July. In August, he was sentenced to 364 days in jail as well as 5 years of probation, 250 hours of community service, and if he fails to comply with any of his probation terms, he'll be facing a 4-year prison sentence. Daniel has actually since been released from prison, but his YouTube and Instagram accounts both remain inactive. In our number 4 spot today, we have Ferdinand Paleca. Earlier this year, the YouTuber was arrested after posting an extremely transphobic video. The video showed him handing fake aid packages to trans women that were actually filled with bricks and garbage and rotten vegetables. Of course, this video came under immediate fire for its disturbing content, and Ferdinand responded by posting a fake apology video. He was charged with online defamation under the Information and Electronic Transactions Act, which carries a maximum 4-year prison sentence, as well as deliberately breaking the law and bringing harm to others, which is punishable by up to 12 years in prison under the same law. After Ferdinand's arrest, there were videos posted that quickly went viral of him being ordered around to do embarrassing tasks by other inmates. The videos received comments from his parents about how much it angered them to see their child being humiliated publicly. They are absolutely right because that is not okay, but it sure is ironic. Luckily for Ferdinand, the trans women that he victimized have decided to drop the charges against him, so he ended up being released from police custody earlier this year. But of course not before he made a snide comment that he was more comfortable in his jail cell rather than in his car before driving off. Hopefully this was just an ill-timed joke and he has learned his lesson because things truly could have been a lot different for him. His YouTube channel remains active with just under 300,000 subscribers. In our number 3 spot today we have Andrei Pies. Andrei is a Russian YouTuber with roughly 800,000 subscribers who posts videos of himself exploring abandoned sites and bunkers. He was arrested in August for allegedly obtaining and spreading state secrets. He has yet to face trial, but he is still in police custody and could potentially receive up to 8 years if he is found guilty. It is unclear if Andrei plans to plead guilty or not to the charges against him. His lawyer has said that the charges are not linked to any of his social media posts, but some people speculate differently because of the fact that there is a suspicious anonymous comment on one of his Instagram posts. The post was from when Andrei gained access to a functioning radar system that Russia uses for its nuclear strike early warning system, and the comment was promising him that big trouble was coming his way, which is super ominous. As of right now, his channel is still up, but it hasn't been posted on since an almost 3-hour live stream on August 2nd, where he apparently speaks about his legal issues, but unfortunately I can't speak Russian and the English captions aren't so great, so I have no idea what exactly he is saying. In our number 2 spot today we have Anthony Locke. Anthony Locke, who's better known as his YouTube name Gas Kings, was a YouTuber who posted car videos. He has almost 700,000 subscribers and his most viewed video has 7.7 million views. In 2018, Anthony went to trial over a scamming scheme. According to the court, Anthony and his partner Ray decided to set up a fake website in order to scam people out of their pensions. The website claimed that you could sign up and invest your pension funds and that half would most definitely be returned back to you, but the other half would be invested into different eco-friendly firms, which ended up not being true at all. Instead, Anthony took the money from pensioners and spent it on expensive cars. If stealing people's money wasn't bad enough already, apparently some of the victims were already in financial turmoil, which certainly just makes the matters worse. Anthony stole close to £1 million and was charged with 23 counts of fraud and 3 counts of money laundering, which landed him a 5-year sentence. In our number 1 spot today we have German Abraham Loera Acosta. German was a small but mighty YouTuber. He would put out motivational messages for his subscribers to view and was known for his catchphrase, "I think the mind is the only thing that limits us." While this may be true and potentially some great advice, things really took a turn for this guy. In February of 2018, the 25-year-old YouTuber was part of a group in a scheme that devised a plan to kidnap a woman named Talia Dennis, who is a lawyer, and hold her hostage for ransom. The YouTuber rented a house where Talia was held captive and demanded 2 million pesos in Bitcoin in exchange for her safe return. Well, it didn't exactly work out as planned. The police rescued Talia 2 days after her kidnapping, and boy am I glad that she was uninjured, although I'm sure that would have been a super traumatic thing to have to live through. All of the men who were involved have been arrested, and just this year German received his sentence of 50 years in prison, as well as a fine of 500,000 pesos. I'm glad that the kidnapping and ransom of Talia was obviously taken very seriously.
In at number 10, we have Brian Lee Draper. Let me take you guys back to the night of September 22nd, 2006, where Brian Draper and his accomplice brutally murdered their classmate Cassie Stoddard for no apparent reason. They were hanging out with Cassie and her boyfriend on the night that Brian and his accomplice said that they were going to the theater to see a movie. As it turns out, they never went to the theater. They were hiding in the house waiting for Cassie's boyfriend to leave so that they can kill her. They turned the electricity off and stabbed the poor girl 30 times. During their trial, the two of them confessed to filming the entire plan. So here's a short clip of the two of them driving away from the scene of the crime.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie.
How sick and morbid is this? It just seems like they're so proud of what they've just done. Well, they were quickly picked up and interrogated, and they were arrested because their fake alibi fell through, and they were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Keep in mind that they were only 16 when they decided to brutally murder their friend. John Silva stabs his way.
Coming in at number 9, we have a big breakout. If you're gonna break out, you might as well bring some of your friends with you, right? Well, some teens in Nashville thought that this was the best idea. They had a plan to break out, and I think it worked better than they ever would have expected. Here's an opening from the news story that was covering the incident.
Good evening. Take a look at these photos. Tonight, the hunt continues for 7 teens who escaped from the Woodland Hills juvenile.
The news highlighted the 7 that were still on the loose, but 32 actually made a break at the same time. That's what you call teamwork. Basically what happened was all of these teens kicked out the windows to their rooms at the same time and then jumped out the windows and hightailed it into the woods. Now you might think it would have been confusion that caught all of these cops off guard, and that's why so many people were able to get away, but it was actually just incompetence on the side of the police. They didn't even notice that the teens had escaped until an hour after it had happened. Coming in at number 8, we have Miko West. If you break out of prison, the first thing you're going to want to do is lay low. Well, that's what they have you believe in the movies. That there's some secret hideout you can go to and there's a bunch of your friends there. Maybe there's an Xbox and there's always really good food. But in reality, when you get out of prison, you have nowhere to go. You don't even have clothes to change into, and you're obviously in an orange jumpsuit. So unless you have everything planned out, most criminals who escape will turn back to crime because it's the only way they can get money and something to eat. This is what happened to Miko West. He was able to break out by swiping a key card and then opening the front door and just walking right out. That sounds like something that was pulled right out of a video game, but it was true. Then he got busted when he tried to steal a candy bar. The dude was just trying to get something to eat. Coming at number 7, we have the Nashville teens. A juvenile detention center in Nashville was holding 4 possibly dangerous teens who managed to escape in December of 2019. How they escaped is still unknown, but it's thought that they snuck past the guards and then jumped a fence and then were on the run. Now, why were these teens being held? I mean, the 4 of them were between the ages of 15 and 17, so how deadly could they be? I keep thinking about what I was doing at that age, and I really was just trying to spend more time playing video games and less time doing homework. That's as crazy as I got. Well, it turns out that these 4 might have been up to something a little more intense. 2 of them were wanted for armed robbery, and the other 2 were wanted for murder. Well, I don't think there's any homework in jail, so I guess that's a little bit of a bonus. Coming in at number 6, we have Joyride. A Louisiana detention center had 3 teens break out with an escape vehicle that was drawing a lot of attention, because there's a lot of ways in which you could slip out of a detention center. You could do the whole walk through the woods thing for hours and people chase you down with lights and dogs. That's a classic. There's also the Shawshank crawl through a mile of poop and then you come out on the other side and then you move to Mexico. Or my favorite, which is sit on each other's shoulders and wear a massive trench coat and a fake mustache, but that's a very advanced technique. But these teens wanted to escape in something that was a lot less inconspicuous. The 3 of them decided that they would jump into a cop car and drive into the city. Well, it didn't take long for the cops to pull them over and the 3 teens were thrown back in prison. It seems that these teens were going for the hiding in plain sight approach to sneaking away. Coming in at number 5, we have It Worked in the Movies. Let's move back over to Nashville, where one teen wanted to try another escape tactic. This goes to show that you can't trust anything you see in the movies, because when you try it in real life, it doesn't work out at all. Like when this teen tried to escape from a juvenile prison by walking through the ceiling. When you see something like that happening in the movies, it always seems like the sneakiest move of all time. When someone slides through the vents and it's all perfectly clean, and then when in reality it would be packed with bugs and it would be one of the loudest things of all time. Well, look at what happens when people try to recreate the movies in real life. As you can see from the clip, they could hear him walking around in the ceiling, and eventually he came smashing through the drywall. You know what? I'm going to give this guy an A+ for trying and even getting into the ceiling in the first place. Even though his plan didn't come together, it's still very bold. Coming in at number 4, we have Bretan McAuliffe. This one is actually terrifying. Bretan McAuliffe was arrested for attempted murder. He was only 16 years old, so they put him into a juvenile correctional facility. He was meant to serve all of his time there, but while staying at the facility, they thought it would be a good idea to include him in a program that would help troubled youth find work while they were serving time. So he was given a job as a construction worker, and it seemed like things were going well until one day he just vanished. He literally just walked off the job site. A very simple escape plan, but an effective one. This is where the story gets even crazier. Bretan was on the run for over a month, and in this time he stole a gun and shot a woman 4 times. Thankfully, the woman lived. Coming in at number 3, we have Ty Harris, the getaway master. It doesn't matter how hard the police try to catch this kid, it seems they can't keep him behind bars. Ty Harris was originally in a standoff with police where they were chasing him down for robbery. He had this standoff, but then he slipped away. The police eventually caught him, and then he was locked up in a Nashville juvenile detention prison. While staying there, he realized the best way to not be in prison is to break out through one of the windows and escape on foot. This is when his skills at evading the police came into play again. Ty made it to a strip mall, and when the police showed up, he hid behind a truck and the cops didn't see him, and then they drove off while he was right under their noses. Ty then stole a truck from this strip mall parking lot where the cops were just looking for him and slipped away and was nowhere to be found. Holy moly, this kid is good at not getting caught. Coming in at number 2, we have Party Time. Sometimes you break out of prison not because you wanted to get free and run away from your punishment. No, you just wanted a little bit of a breather. You want to stretch your legs a little bit, maybe catch up with your friends and feel good for a little while before you have to go back. Well, apparently this happens more often than you would think. Juvenile detention centers all over America have had teens who break out after prisons are finished doing their rounds. They will sneak out and go party with their friends for a little while, usually have their friends meet them outside with some sort of substances that make them feel really good. Then before it's time to wake up in the morning, they will be back in their beds like nothing happened. Maybe prisons should be a little more fun and people wouldn't be trying to break out all the time. God, I'm so smart. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have TJ Lane, one of the most terrifying teens to ever escape prison. TJ Lane was given a triple life sentence for coming to his high school with a handgun and killing 3 students in cold blood. He did this all while wearing a shirt which he wrote the word killer on the front. On top of this, in a way to mock his victims, he wore another shirt that said killer to his sentencing. While held in a state prison, he saw an open window and made a break for it. Thankfully, he wasn't on the loose for very long before he was captured. This could have turned out to be so much worse, but he was quickly taken back to prison, where he will most likely be for the rest of his life.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Matthew Wayne. We have all had quite the year trying to adjust to the differences we are currently facing, but some people certainly have an easier time adjusting than others. Matthew Wayne is a small British YouTuber who posts videos of himself playing paintball, but he found himself in some hot water earlier this year. For some reason, Matthew decided it would be a good idea to film himself calling in a bomb threat to a hospital. Apparently, he was upset at some treatment he had received closer to the beginning of the global spread of the coronavirus and thought that it was an appropriate way to deal with his feelings about it. During the phone call, Matthew allegedly referred to himself as a YouTuber, made a ton of accusations towards the staff, and apparently also made a racist remark. I can totally understand being frustrated, but this really takes it to another level. Shockingly, Matthew was only sentenced to 12 weeks and a few small fines. Let's hope this was enough for him to have learned his lesson.
Onto this list at number 9. He was only 15 years old when he was convicted of first-degree murder after he strangled a 12-year-old boy and dumped his body in a septic tank. He was convicted of first-degree murder, and when he was sentenced to life in prison without parole, he didn't show any emotions. If he was an adult, he could have faced the death penalty because he even admitted to kidnapping his friend, forcing him to go to the woods, and then suffocating him to death. What a brutal crime. Even though he admitted to doing all of that, he never explained why he did it. So yeah, this guy sounds like a serial killer in the making. So police even found a note at the scene of the crime, and on that note it said list to prepare Jerry, and on the note it said strip to underwear, tie hands, gag and cover eyes. And like I said, he's a serial killer in the making, so maybe it's a good thing that he's gonna be behind bars for the rest of his life, because the world's gonna be a much safer place. Number 8 takes us to Joshua Phillips. He was convicted of life in prison without parole back in July of 1999, and that's after he murdered his 8-year-old neighbor when he was just 14 years old. He strangled, bludgeoned, and stabbed Maddie Clifton to death. He stuffed her lifeless body underneath his waterbed, but she wouldn't stay hidden for long. Joshua's mother came into his room days after the murder and found the dead body, which led him to confess to this murder. He said that they were playing basketball outside and he accidentally hit her on the head with his bat. He said he panicked and then killed her because he was scared of what his father would think. And I don't know, it seems like you killed her because you are a psychopath. This was no accident. Here's a clip of Joshua that was filmed 1 decade after the murder.
I kept going like, all right, well, maybe I did deserve to be here. Maybe I deserve to do as much time. Maybe I deserve to die in prison. And but I always usually come back with the thought that I can't look at it like that, you know, and that doing that is just a cop-out and faking it, you know, you're just saying screw it, and why would I try to learn anything? Why would I try to improve myself? Why would I try to do anything to help anybody if I'm just gonna lay down and just die in here, you know?
Even though he might seem like he has changed, I feel like he is a textbook psychopath who knows the right things to say in order to look like a victim. The youngest American citizen to be sentenced to life in prison makes their way onto this list at number 7. I'm talking about the notorious Lionel Tate, who was just 13 years old when he was convicted of first-degree murder.
To be the case, incarceration for your natural life. The now 14-year-old Lionel Tate was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Back on July 28, 1999, Lionel was left alone with a 6-year-old friend in the basement. The two of them were downstairs playing when all of a sudden Lionel came upstairs 45 minutes later to tell his mother that the little girl wasn't breathing. He said that they were wrestling and he had her in a headlock and then smashed her against the table. An autopsy revealed that he had stomped on her so hard that he actually lacerated her liver, fractured her skull and ribs, and her brain was very swollen. During the trial, the prosecution said that these injuries can be compared to falling from a 3-story building. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole, and the judge said that the acts of Lionel Tate were not the playful acts of a child. The acts of Lionel Tate were cold, callous, and cruel. Moving on to number 6, let's talk about Carvassia Sims.
A judge sentenced 17-year-old Carvassia Sims to 70 to 120 years in prison after pleading guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and use of a weapon in their deaths.
Alright, I have to ask, is this real life right now? 70 to 120 years? I know that sounds insane, but I think the sentencing, it kind of fits this crime. He was only 15 years old when he shot 2 teenagers, ages 17 and 18 years old, while he was attempting to buy a gun off of them. It was decided that he'd be tried as an adult because he was involved in armed robberies and 2 homicides. Oh, and he was on probation during the murders for other crimes that he committed in the past. What? So yeah, I think it's safe to say that he is a repeat offender and he will most likely die behind bars because I don't think a parole board will ever grant him probation. At least I'm really hoping they don't. Rodrigo Caballero crawls onto this dark list at number 5. Rodrigo Caballero was sentenced to 110 years in prison when he was 16 years old, and he didn't even kill anyone. So how is this possible? Well, the 16-year-old fired several gunshots at 3 other teenagers, where one of them suffered from a non-fatal but serious injury. He was convicted of 3 counts of attempted murder, and each of those charges, they come with a minimum 15-year to life. And the judge also handed him special enhancements onto his sentencing for firing a gun belonging to a gang and greatly injuring one of the victims. When you add up all of these charges, you get 110 years. So technically, he isn't sentenced life to prison without parole. He will be eligible for parole when he's 126 years old, but most likely he is going to be dead before he makes it to his parole hearing. Up next, number 4, we have Gregory Brooks. He was 19 years old when he pleaded guilty to abducting and killing the parents of a former talk show host. Gregory Brooks and his accomplices beat them, stole $50, a rifle, jewelry, and other items, then they locked the couple in a closet. Later, one of the accomplices said he would return to the house to finish them off. The judge gave him 60 years for each of the 2 counts of murder and robbery charges, and just moments after he was sentenced to 120 years, his father told reporters that despite his son having a good, supportive upbringing, he was influenced by gang members with negative motives. Could you imagine being sentenced to 120 years in maximum prison at such a young age? Your whole life is just gone. He will literally die and rot behind bars for the rest of his life because of one stupid night. Moving up this list, at number 3, we're talking about Eddie Devine. This case is pretty intense, so prepare yourselves. He was only 13 years old at the time when him and his friend forced a woman into a car where they drove around for hours while they tortured and violated her with an ice pick. Thankfully, the woman was able to escape when the teenager stopped for gas, but she will be scarred for the rest of her life. Eddie Devine pleaded guilty to 2 counts of armed carjacking, 3 counts of armed robbery, 3 counts of kidnapping, and 2 counts of sexual battery. This kid isn't even old enough to go around the block by himself, and he's already committing all of these horrible crimes. To make things even worse, he told police that he was armed with a knife and he threatened to kill the woman before they stole her SUV. I'm pretty sure when I was 13, I was collecting Pokemon cards. I wasn't going around committing all these crimes. Eddie Devine did not get off lightly. He was sentenced to a total of 130 years in prison. Kenneth Young sneaks onto this list at number 2. He was only 14 years old when his mother's drug dealer forced him to get involved in a series of armed robberies. During one heist, Kenneth was caught, convicted, and sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences. So basically, he was sentenced to be thrown behind bars without ever having a chance of being released, and he didn't even injure or kill anyone. Let's hear from Kenneth Young.
Kenneth Young. First and foremost, Your Honor, I want to take the time out and say I take full responsibility for my actions and my role in these crimes. I have lived with regret every day as a civilized human being for these crimes. I have been incarcerated for 11 years, and I have taken advantage of every opportunity available for me in prison to better myself.
He was coerced into committing these crimes, and he was at such a young and impressionable age. I don't think he should have gotten this harsh sentence. Because of this young age and the severity of the sentence, he spent most of his time in solitary confinement until he reached 18 years old, where he was then transferred to an adult prison where he will grow old and die. And at number 1 for this video, Treyvion Blonde was 15 years old when he robbed a party with 2 older gang members. Treyvion didn't hurt anyone, but he was was found guilty of 49 counts, and eventually he was sentenced to 6 life sentences and an additional 118 years in prison. He knew he would be spending a few years in prison. He didn't expect to die in there. This has to be one of the harshest punishments in America for a teenager who didn't even commit homicide. Oh, and his accomplice, well, they only served 10 to 13 years in prison. I don't understand how this was even possible. Out of the 3 of them, Treyvion was the least involved, but he got the most time. After spending some time in prison, Treyvion finally got a glimpse of hope.
Received much lighter sentences.
Governor Bob McDonnell reduced Blunt's sentence to 40 years, and today, Governor Terry McAuliffe cut it down to 14.
I mean, what the heck? His sentence was reduced from 6 life sentences plus 118 years to just 14 years. This makes me wonder what the heck was wrong with the original judge. I think his license should be put into question because I have no idea what was going through his mind. Maybe he was severely power tripping that day. He was just so pissed off. He's like, I'm giving you life plus life plus life plus life plus life and plus life, and if that's not enough, plus 118 years, just in case.